Hi Hillary, thanks for joining us. We're going to be doing a interview about basically about your brother who has muscular dystrophy. So we're titling this interview "Having a Brother with a Disability." So the first question I have for you is, are you and your brother close? Talk to me about your relationship and what is the age difference?
So yes, Hollis and I are really close. He's like my best friend, and he's 2 years younger than me. We've been close since we were kids, and we have a pretty unique relationship, and in terms of the fact that we're intimate in a way that brothers and sisters typically aren't, and that I have to help him like go to the washroom or put his jacket on before he leaves in the morning and that sort of thing. So he relies on me in a way that siblings don't usually need to. So it's kind of, I think in a way, made us closer. So yeah, we've got a really good relationship.
Okay, and what's the age difference?
2 years.
2 years?
Yeah, I'm
He's
2
younger?
years older than him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Are there times where you have been overprotective? And talk to us about that a little bit.
I'm always overprotective of Hollis. He's my little brother. I mean, I'm overprotective in a way that a sister typically would be of her brother, but even more so because people see him in a different light. So someone that doesn't know Hollis would, for instance, stare, and that bothers me. But Hollis is such a good-natured, optimistic, positive guy, and so even if I have a problem with people staring at him, he's often had to tell me that it's okay, and it's just because often people don't know someone with a disability, so it's just something that's different for them, and they're not used to seeing it. So, so yeah, he's just always been Mr. Positive Man. So.
You're not beating anyone up or anything?
No. No.
How do you feel when his coworkers call in sick? You said that you do pick up the slack sometimes and help him to the bathroom. Have you had to do like his whole morning call or evening call before?
Yeah, there are times where I'm kind of Hollis's backup. He always knows that he can rely on me if he needs to. So there's been a number of times where he'll call me or text me saying that he doesn't have someone to do his overnight, for instance, because someone sleeps over every night to help him turn at night, and if he needs to turn over and that sort of thing. So it's hard for me because it's I always have to be there. So even if I have plans, I need to cancel them because he's important. And obviously, sometimes if I get frustrated about it, I have to remind myself that like he wouldn't call on me unless he needed it, and I don't want him to ever feel guilty for having to do that because I want him to know that I'm there for him. It's frustrating sometimes, but at the same time, it's like I also feel honored that he knows that he can rely on me if he needs to. So
Great.
Yeah.
Have you included your brother in any school projects or taken any steps to teach the public about his disability?
Yeah, in university actually, I was in an English class and we had to do a project on something that we wanted people to be more aware of, whatever topic we wanted. So I chose Hollis, and we kind of focused on accessibility at Carleton University because that's where he goes to school. And he's lucky because it's one of the few universities that's pretty much fully accessible. They've got underground tunnels, so he can go wherever in the winter.
Okay.
So one of my classmates actually we rented a manual wheelchair from the accessibility unit.
Okay.
And so she wheeled around campus with Hollis, and it was a really interesting project even for her because she doesn't have anyone in her life that's in a wheelchair. So for her to be suddenly in one and people looking at her like she's the disabled one was pretty eye-opening for her as well. Mm-hmm. And just learning things about even things I often don't think about with Hollis when he's alone on campus is like if he's going from A to B, he thinks about how many doorways he needs to go through because if he's not with someone, he's just going to have to rely on hoping that someone's going to be there when he needs to go through that door.
Right.
So, or going on the elevator, someone to press that button. So I've had conversations with him actually about how it's really hard for him and it's nerve-wracking, but he gets more used to it the more he's in that situation. So
Yeah, because you would think the door that you can just push the buttons, but most people that are in wheelchairs actually can't reach it.
exactly,
But they don't think about that when they design them.
No.
So what are people's reactions when they see you guys out in public? You mentioned that they stare at him a lot. Is that common, or?
Yes, people always do stare, and often kids stare, but what's interesting with kids is because they don't have any filter, often they'll come up to Hollis and ask him, why are you in a chair? And Hollis has no problem with explaining his situation.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's sometimes it's frustrating. I've gotten used to it, but I've even asked Hollis before, and he doesn't even notice it anymore, just because it's his everyday, so it's not something that even occurs to him anymore. So, but he's almost like a spectacle in a way, just because he's a little bit different. But if people were more, it's hard because not everyone has someone in their life that's disabled, and I just feel like if people were more educated and were more aware, then there would be more understanding.
Yeah. Do people often come up and talk to him, or is that?
I wouldn't say often, but he's a really social guy, and he's very welcoming. So he'll talk to whoever's around, and often he needs to get someone's attention sometimes, and even if he's, for instance, ordering a coffee at a Starbucks and he has an attendant standing next to him, the person looks at his attendant instead of looking at him, and that bothers him. I know that bothers him. So he knows he has to work his way into a conversation. So it's like often people think that because he's in a wheelchair, there's probably a mental disability there, which that's not always the case. And it's people need to give him the benefit of the doubt and give him a chance.
First.
But he's a strong personality, so he can make it happen for himself too.
That's good.
Yeah.
How do you feel society views individuals with disabilities?
I find society has come a long way. When I think back to, when Hollis was in elementary school, my mom would have to go to school with him every day and be his care worker for the full day, whether that's, carrying him up a set of stairs and then carrying his wheelchair and then, back down. And so I think society has come a long way in terms of like his high school. There was a disabled unit and he had care throughout the day when he needed it. So in that way it's been positive, but still I think it can come a lot further in terms of funding for whether it's assisted living facilities where people with disabilities can gain more independence and live independent lives. Like for instance, my brother lives with my mom, and she's been his caregiver since he was born. So it's they love each other, but at the same time it's also it's stressful, and my mom can't work outside of the home because of that. And so if there was more funding and more opportunities for Hollis to be living independently, I think he would probably take it.
Yeah, and the independent living is like a 7-year waiting list.
Exactly.
As of now, so.
Yeah.
Okay. And what changes should be done to educate the public if you feel there's any changes?
Well, I think it could start with, parents talking to their kids and letting them know about people with disabilities. For instance, my cousin who's 10 years old, it's been really interesting watching him learn more about Hollis and spend more time with him and learn ways that he can, help Hollis with his drink or, get him a Kleenex or that sort of thing. So it's, I kind of think from the grassroots type thing in terms of building on awareness, but I'm not sure how else.
Well, I think you're right about that actually, because when I did a lot of interviews with other people, they were touching on the subject of a lot of children approaching them and asking them about the disability, and the parents being like, no, don't do that, that's rude, don't. But they actually want people to do that because it's like a teachable moment.
Yeah.
So I think you're right with just educating her children about that.
Yeah, I think it starts from there.
Yeah. And in schools, I think maybe too.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's many programs that are targeted towards...
we actually didn't have anyone with disabilities at our school at all. So for me, I only ended up learning I guess it was my first job that I got hired where
Mm-hmm.
I just randomly started working there, but I didn't know anyone in a chair till I was about 20 anyway. So
Yeah, and there wasn't anyone. The only person that was disabled in any of my schools was my brother Hollis, and then in high school there wasn't any. There was a high school that had a specific unit. There was one high school that I know of, Canterbury, where Hollis could go to because of he couldn't go to the same high school as me because of, it wasn't accessible. So.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Okay. Talk to me a little bit about accessibility and transportation when you two go out. Do you have any issue? You said a little bit of accessibility at school and stuff like that. But what do you find about transportation, like taking taxis or?
It's hard. I mean, in the winter, Hollis is kind of forced to hermit a lot because he can't go many places because of the snow. And that's no one's fault. But in terms of taxis and that sort of thing, like when the weather's nice, there's a lot of buses now that are accessible, so Hollis can just hop on a bus with his attendant, which is really great. But there's not a lot of taxis that are accessible. There's some, and when Hollis can get one, it's great. But there's been times where we've gone out for drinks or something, and we're waiting forever to get a cab, and it's not happening. So we eventually have to wake my mom up to come out and get us. So if there were more taxis, it would make Hollis's life a lot easier in terms of independence and social aspects.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes taking the accessible bus, sometimes the wait times are really long too, right?
Yeah. And accessibility to, just businesses and that sort of thing. There's often a step to everything. And so that's frustrating because you can easily just have a tiny ramp that they pull out, just to let people in.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of places that I really like that I would like to bring Hollis to, but I can't because it's not accessible at the front, or there's no accessible bathroom. So it's kind of like hard to make that work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and especially in a power chair, that's the difference too, right? I think maybe a lot of people don't realize the power chair is really heavy. You can't even go up that little step. So even if you have an accessible door, doesn't mean you can get in.
Yeah, exactly.
I hear you like to bug your brother and cross his toes. Talk to me about the fun times you guys have.
There's a few things that Hollis and I get up to that a lot of people would maybe classify me as a bad sister, but I treat Hollis like any sister would treat her brother, whether or not he has muscular dystrophy or not. And I think that he appreciates it because a lot of people who don't know him well are very, delicate and careful, whereas I'll smack him if I feel like it. Or, his toes curl, and I like to uncurl them, and it freaks him out. And obviously he can't fix it by himself because he's disabled, but so he'll laugh and yell at me, and eventually I'll fix them back to their appropriate place, and he'll say that he hates me or something like that. But it's I think it's important that we have that relationship because it's actually there was one other time where we were on a trip, and he had an attendant who is a really deep sleeper who couldn't hear. We were sleeping. I was in an ensuite and they were in the bedroom, and his attendant was sleeping next to him, but is a really deep sleeper and couldn't hear him. That he wanted to turn him over. And I heard him that he was calling, and so Hollis calls me, and I said, try him one more time before I got up. And a lot of people tell me that I'm the worst sister ever based on that story. But at the same time, I think it's important that we have that relationship because he gets treated enough like a delicate flower. I need to take him down off that pedestal sometimes.
That's good.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add that you had?
No, I don't think so. I think that was, covered everything. Is there anything else?
No, I just wanted to actually mention your business quickly and what you're doing. So you're doing personal training for your business?
Yeah, I'm a personal trainer, and I train. It's Fit by Hillary, fitness intensive training, and I train people in their homes. So I bring the workout to them.
Okay, and you've done a little research into working with individuals with disabilities. Is that something that you would be willing to do?
Yeah, I'd definitely be interested if there was a market for it, if people were looking for that sort of service, definitely.
Okay, so we're going to post the website at the end, and if anyone's interested, they'll contact you.
Perfect. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.